Herzensmut, 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 tut jedem gut. Hallo ihr Lieben, schön, dass ihr eingeschaltet habt zum Podcast heute hier bei Herzensmut. Ich freue mich unendlich, den heutigen Podcast-Gast vorzustellen. Es ist Ted Simon. Vielleicht einige von euch kennen ihn. Wir werden gleich nochmal ein bisschen näher darauf eingehen, wer er ist und woher ich ihn kenne. Ja, Ted ist auch ein Adventurer, also ein Abenteurer, und er weiß auch bestimmt ganz viel über das Thema Mut, Herzensmut. Er ist mir schon ganz oft seinem Herzen gefolgt, ist immer wieder in seinen Mut quasi durch das schwarze Loch durchgesprungen und hat immer wieder seinen Mut eher gepackt als die Angst. Und deswegen freue ich mich sehr, dass Ted heute da ist im Interview. Und genau, das heißt, das heutige Interview ist in Englisch. Das heißt, wir starten jetzt auch gleich. So, hi Ted, welcome to the
Hi,
podcast. Thanks for being here.
nice to see you. Yeah.
Yeah, I've introduced you a little. I just said you're an adventurer. You had amazing adventures in your life.
Yeah.
And for everyone who does not know you, do you want to like to just introduce you just like a little?
Me, who I am? Well, you've already told them. I'm Ted Simon,
Yeah.
I've done many things in my life, but I suppose what your people want to know about is that I've traveled around the world twice on a motorcycle, and I've written books, and
You could just travel. Yeah.
the books are quite well known, so that's and it's been a long life. That's all I can really tell you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's right. For everyone who's listening, Ted turned 90 in May this year, right?
May the 1st.
Yes. And he did his first travels when he was 42. Is that right?
The first motorcycle trip.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Motorcycle journey. Yeah.
And yeah.
And yes, well, that you want to know about that. That was 4 years, traveling around the world. And that was at a time before internet, before mobile phones, before anything.
Hard to imagine for the generations.
So it was, I wasn't the first person to go around the world on a motorcycle, but there were very few, and nobody was doing it when I was doing it.
Yeah.
So it was a complete adventure. I did it out of curiosity. I really wanted to know the world. It was the only way I could think to do it. I knew I was going to write a book, so it had to be interesting.
Yeah.
And I chose to do it on a motorcycle because I thought that would be the most interesting way to do it. I didn't know anything about motorcycles.
Yeah, you were saying the only way to explore the world is when you go by it, like when you stick to the ground and not when you're flying, basically,
exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And
yes.
For the same reason, I didn't want the journey to be interrupted. It was a single journey, always on the ground or on. I was in the air once, and that was
enough.
that was between Colombia and Panama. I was on an island, a Colombian island in the Gulf of Mexico, and there was one small airplane that flew from this island to Panama. There was no room. There was no room in the luggage department for the motorcycle. So they wheeled the motorcycle into the airplane and tied it up at the back of the captain's seat.
What? And, you can't imagine that today. There's too many safety issues.
Yes, that's why it's very difficult. You couldn't do a journey like that today.
No, you couldn't. And you were a mechanic before, so you were a journalist originally, and then but back in the days, you were also a mechanic before you start traveling.
No, right? I was never a mechanic. I was never a mechanic. I started my life planning to be a scientist.
A scientist.
I did mechanical engineering, not mechanical, chemical engineering. I was a chemist until,
chemical. Then.
and then I,
Ah,
yes.
okay.
So I gave that up very, very early in 1951.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
stopped and went to Paris, and then I became a journalist.
Yeah. Cool.
Sort of accidentally, really.
Yeah.
So I was doing that as a newspaperman for 10 years, and then a magazine editor, and then I left and went to France and lived in a ruin for 4 years.
In a ruin. So you know how it feels to like I live at the moment.
No, mine was a real ruin. Yours is just a small house, but mine was a 13th century ruin.
Wow.
And it was completely in need of repair, and all stone, just stones and wood. And I worked there for 4 years.
Cool.
And then that was when I decided to go around the world.
Amazing. And what I really like about what you were saying in your book, that about all the gear, like you went into a shop and you prepared for your motorcycle adventures, and then you were just overwhelmed kind of from all the stuff you see in a shop, and you think you need this and you need this, and then they're doing a really good job in the shops to tell you what you all need to go on an adventure. And what I find so interesting is, because I can relate to it, that it does not need much to actually start an adventure. So
no.
and it's yeah, can you
well there was no
yeah
there was no room on the motorcycle in those days. There were no boxes, there was very little equipment, so I couldn't take very much. But I used pretty much most of what nowadays it's impossible. People take too much stuff.
I got a lot of stuff. I have to figure out what to leave behind soon. And so what can you tell the listeners who might think of changing something in their life? They're in like the thing of like not maybe going on a motorbike around the world, but maybe just as simple as changing a job, leave the partner because it's not good for you. Just about how can people, or what is your experience of overcome that fear of that? It's basically just a thing in your head, really. And I mean, you've experienced a lot of times to overcome that fear. What can you maybe tell us? What helped you in your life to?
Well, most people who want to make some kind of change or adventure and so on are doing it because they are dissatisfied with where they are. Right? They feel something is missing in their lives. And so the important thing to realize is that the only way to make up for this, what's missing, is to make a really serious change in the way you relate to the world, right? And most people are afraid to do that. Really, it's not just a question of how you travel or whether you travel or whatever it is you do, but most people are afraid to make those changes. We get addicted to custom, to our customary behavior.
You mean like staying in the same spot, like like in the little box, staying just in the comfort zone.
Right, having the same kind of food, the same kind of drinks, having people around you that who will keep telling you who you are, that sort of thing, right? So for most people, and the same was true for me, most people, it takes a real shock to get you out of that situation. So So the thing is really you have to have a real desire to do something. You know, I mean, in my case, I had a tremendous urge to see the world. That was my main thing. I was so passionate about satisfying my curiosity that I was prepared to take risks to do it. The journey, I didn't set out to change myself. I set out to satisfy a curiosity. In fact, the journey changed me a lot. And so what I would say to people is that you need to find something. You need to find something that you really have a real desire, passionate desire to do, and that will help you to break the mold that you're in. You need to change everything to make it happen. It's a difficult and sometimes painful, you know, and so you have to really have a great need to do it. I mean, I don't know what it would be, but it could be anything.
It's mostly to tragic, or how is the English word, like to something bad has to happen, that something changes, loss of a person or a depression or something. Everyone who's listening, you don't have to go there to change something. You can do it earlier, but yeah, I know what you mean. It's wow, that's beautiful actually. Yeah, it's and can you said at the beginning that people have a desire to maybe fix themselves up to have a change, or what was that again? Can you come closer to that?
No, I mean, I don't know. Maybe some people think that they really need to change themselves, and then they usually go to a psychiatrist or something. But I'm not talking to people who know what's wrong. I mean, I'm talking about people who just feel a need to change something. They need something more than that, right?
And then it's about the acceptance of also knowing you have enough. There is nothing in the world can fill up the hole in yourself, isn't it?
Well, that's true. Also, I think there are very few people who don't have a hole somewhere.
Yeah, like the
I mean, all you can do is improve. You know, the world. You're on this world for a certain. You know, for how long are you on this world? I'm very lucky. I've been on it longer than most, but it's only for a certain period of time. You need to make the most of it. You know, to really make the most of it, and people are afraid. People are afraid to take chances because they're afraid that they won't be able to get back to where they were. People with jobs are afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid that if they go away for any length of time, they do something different, then nobody will want to know them afterwards. It's absolutely not true. The opposite is true. The more changes you make, the more useful you become, the more valuable you become. So that's very important to know that.
So if I understood that right, so it's you didn't start traveling because you felt like you need to fill up a gap or something, like not like you imagine how you travel because you had the desire to get to know the world yourself and to actually see what is the world like, how are the people, how is it really like. I mean, you're in your job as a journalist, you must be knowing a lot about what was going on, and then maybe you're like, okay, I want to see myself actually.
To explain it, I needed to explain it to myself. I mean, thank goodness I'm a writer, so it was easier. That's how I write. I write to explain things to myself. But maybe you can do it with music or with pictures or all sorts of ways. Yeah.
Okay. I would like to, we've been talking before we started to recording this podcast. I told Ted about when you imagine you have a big decision in your life and you wonder who you can ask about advice. I like to imagine you sitting on a table with your 90-year-old self, and you would ask your 90-year-old self, what would you do? And then I find it's a really good practice to connect to your inner kind of wisdom, you could say, or like to your trust and towards yourself, and be like, okay, my 90-year-old self would tell me, just do it. You know, you have only one life, do it. And now I'm having Ted here. He is 90, which is amazing. And what would, the question for you, Ted, what would the 90-year-old Ted tell the younger Ted, for maybe some advice or maybe something? I don't like to say what would you do different, because it went all the way you wanted it, but just something.
The trouble is, I've already told you what I would have said to myself, and it's what I did say to myself, which is that not to be satisfied with what you've got.
Yeah.
But always to be open.
Curious.
Open to any opportunities that come along, to keep not to be tied into any special thing, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's good advice. I don't know, because if you were a brilliant mathematician,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you want to go on doing that for the rest of your life? I mean, that also, like
Albert Einstein.
Sense,
the physicist, yeah.
You know, it depends on who you are, what kind of a person you are, and also it depends on the kind of background that you have, the upbringing you've had. I mean, I was in a very vulnerable situation as a child, because I was with a single mother and I was in great difficulty. And there was a war on, and all sorts of things, you know, created a sense of insecurity and so on. So I'm not a good example of what everybody else is.
No, everyone is different, of course. You can't generalize it. Yeah. What do you mean by you were in a vulnerable situation when you were growing up, or when you then were?
Yeah, because I didn't have the sort of relationships with family and so on that most people.
My parents broke up. I can feel you. Yeah.
Less and less, but still they do, you know, brothers and sisters and a father and you know, and a peaceful environment. So those things were missing for me. So I don't know whether my advice is really good for everybody. It's just good for people.
Can relate to your story like I do. Yeah. Yeah. But also,
I think almost everybody benefits from being exposed to change, big changes. I mean, even if you are a brilliant mathematician, I still think it would be and most brilliant people do strange things. I mean, they do go off on trips and do do things. You know, it's an intelligent thing to do.
It is, yeah. Because I think when you really realize, okay, there is an end at this human being on this planet, then you're like, oh yeah, what would you do? Like if you die, like, okay, would do this, and this, then why the hell are you not doing it? You don't know if you're gonna live tomorrow. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And
go on for very long. I have to do some other stuff as well.
I know. That's I'm happy you took that. You just gave us the time of yours. And I know you had like some photo books, and how else can people support you?
Well, go to my website. It's the best.
Yeah, I will link it in the show notes in the podcast, so people can click on it.
Everything I have is on the website, and so I got some books I want to sell and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But mostly I just want people to understand what to do with their lives, and to give people hope, that they can really get more out of life than they have already. And I think that's my way of doing it, is as good a way as any. But there must be many other ways. But the main thing is you have to do something. You have to make some kind of change, make some kind of attempt to become bigger, better than you are already.
Yeah. Great, thanks. I send you lots of healing, Ted.
Thank you.
Whatever you had.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is with the well, I'm ending that. Okay, guys, thank you so much for
Thanks a lot. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for being here. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys, if you want to support Ted, I link the website below and you can just check him out. We would both love that. Wish you a great day, lots of adventure spirit, and goodbye.
I wish I was in Corsica with you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.